Hello traders, welcome to another trading interview, this time with one of our serious FTMO traders, Hunter from Houston in Texas. Welcome Hunter, and Merry Christmas to you and your family and to all FTMO traders that are listening us right now.
Thank you very much. Merry Christmas to you, and thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much for having you on today, and thank you so much again for coming. And for those who are listening us for the first time, FTMO is a serious proprietary trading company that actively search for trading talents because we have developed a unique two-step evaluation process that consists of FTMO challenge and verification phase. And once you pass this two-step evaluation process, you'll be offered a unique placement in our proprietary trading company. And we have some news for you because until the end of the December 2021, if you buy a new FTMO challenge, you will get 10% sale and 10 extra days. And now let's get back to our excellent FTMO trader, Hunter. Hunter is a really good trader because he currently has two FTMO accounts, one with $200,000 account size and the second one with 160,000 euros account size. And he had a profit from previous period of more than $19,000, and on the second one he had more like 7,500 euros, which is around $27,500. Really great result. Merry Christmas again. And before I'm going to talk about the strategy, man, I would like to ask first question. Why do you have two account size in different currencies, man?
So the reason that I did that was I actually had plans for the Euro account specifically because I wanted to start a company in Europe, and
Uh-huh.
I figured if once I had some money rolling and once I was able to save up that money, I wouldn't have to transfer it. I could just put that money in euros and transfer it to a bank account over there.
Cool.
So that
And
was the whole plan behind it.
and if I can ask, what company do you want to start in Europe?
A trading company, just trading my own personal money and then eventually maybe taking investors and trading other people's money as well.
Cool, cool. So for how long do you trade?
Uh I started trading in 2017, I believe. So
Uh-huh.
it's been about 4 years.
Almost five.
Yeah. Yeah, almost 5. So it's been a long journey.
And do you remember the starting phase?
Yeah, I remember one of my friends on social media was posting about it. It was actually one of my oldest brother's friends, and I saw he was making like good money, and I was like, "Hey man, can you like show me how to do this?" And he was like, "Yeah, but you have to pay me." So I ended up paying him some money. He showed me how to do some things, and within the first week of me trading, I put $1,000 into an account, and actually doubled it.
Wow.
Um, so from there, I was like just fascinated because I was like, "Oh my god, I just turned like 1,000 into 2 grand in like a week."
How is that possible? Right?
Yeah, I was like, I gotta keep going with this, like see where it takes me.
and then
So,
and then tell me how many accounts have you blown?
oh, so many, so many. So like right after that, so I did really good and I was doing good for a couple weeks after, and then my friend introduced me to like Forex Factory, which is, if you don't
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah,
to the
sure.
people watching, it's just like a place where you can see the news events, and the red folders, they show you that there's going to be big volatility. So he showed me that and he was like, "Yeah, if you trade before the news, like there's a bunch of volatility, you can make a bunch of money." Well, I ended up getting really lucky. I turned like 2 grand into six. So I went from 2,000 to 6,000. And then I kept trying to like do that. But honestly, it was more like gambling. It was more just like me not really know what I'm doing and getting lucky. And I ended up losing all that money.
Hmm. Cool.
And that was my first big lesson in
Hmm.
Forex.
And are you looking at Forex Factory right now from the fundamental point of view?
Oh, of
Of
course, of
course.
course. The fundamentals for me are pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
Like today,
Yes, today.
FOMC is gonna be happening, and that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
So I always pay attention to the fundamentals. Typically, I don't really like to trade when there's a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of news, but sometimes I will. So it just
Yeah.
depends.
Many unexpected events during those news can
Yeah.
happen, of course. And
Yeah.
can you tell me something more about the learning process?
Yeah. So, like I said, my friend was the one who showed me, and he was kind of teaching me, the basics like support and resistance, key levels, how to identify trends and stuff like that. And a lot of those things that I learned then, I still use now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there was more and more that I learned as I progressed, and but I still try to stick to like the basics because I
Mm-hmm.
think that once you master those, like you're on the right path.
Mm-hmm. And what is the most important lesson that you gained during this period, this learning phase?
Uh, Through this whole entire period, I
Mm-hmm.
think the most important thing that I learned was risk management.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why so many people end up blowing accounts is
Mm-hmm.
because they see other people and it's possible to like take a small amount of money and
Mm-hmm.
turn it into something big, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not very typical. um you need to first be consistent, and once you have that consistency,
Mm-hmm.
um and you figure out what your risk profile is, you're going to have a lot of
Mm-hmm.
success.
That was something what I wanted to ask you right away. Where do you see the connection between risk management and consistency?
Oh, it's huge because when you're just the first thing you should always know when you're planning your trades is like, what am I risking? And if your risk is all over the place and you're just kind of like, oh, this looks like a good trade, let me just put 5 lots on this
Mm-hmm.
or 2 lots on this, but you're not like really paying attention. And I would say for people who are starting out, like a good amount of risk is like 0.5 to 1% risk per trade.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
that's what I like to stick to
Hmm.
as well.
For day
So
trading, right? Probably.
yeah,
Of
yeah,
course,
yeah.
swing traders can have high
Ye-
risk, bigger one,
Yeah,
and the scalpers they can the 1% can be really big.
yeah, yeah.
Yep. So you're an intraday trader, right?
Intraday, and sometimes I'll hold trades multiple days, but I like to kind of get in and out for
Hmm.
the most part. Yeah.
Cool. All right, I cannot wait to hear your strategy. Can you show me something, please?
Yeah, no problem. So here, let me so basically my strategy is something I always start with something called top-down analysis.
Huh?
Um and that's basically starting from like the monthly down to the weekly down to the daily.
Of course.
Um
Multiple time
and
frame
then
analysis.
I like to yeah, yeah. And then I like to use the 4 hour and the 1 hour for my entries. I don't typically like to go any lower. I don't like 30-minute, 15-minute.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my personal preference.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I only usually look at the monthly, like at the month end, like same with the weekly. But every now and then I'll take a look at it just to see like what is the trend.
Mm-hmm.
So like for instance, the first thing I try to identify is the trend. And if you see gold, like long term, it's been on an uptrend, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like all the way down here from 2018 of May, it's just been up, up, up. Um, we've been pulling back since about July 20th,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been going down.
Yep.
Um, so long term, and that's another thing that I should say is part of my strategy is fundamentals, not just technical analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so when it comes to certain things like the dollar, like that's another big part of my strategy is the dollar index. Um, and seeing how it's matching up against all the other currencies. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and especially with gold, I feel like the fundamentals are pretty big. You have to know what's happening with the
Mm-hmm.
dollar. So paying attention to what the Federal Reserve is doing, printing money, what's their balance sheet, interest rates,
Mm.
all this craziness that they
Mm.
do. Um, and
So
that's why in the long term, even though gold has been going down, I'm still long term bullish on gold. Um,
and do you use some correlation with the dollar index?
Yeah, so it's interesting because gold I've noticed doesn't actually always correlate with the dollar index. Um, but for the most part, it will move in correlation with dollar index. I
Mm-hmm.
like to trade a lot of dollar pairs, so I usually use it for mostly like the currency pairs, not necessarily gold. Um, but I do still try to like see if they're matching up and look at the technicals and the
Mm-hmm.
fundamentals. Um, so that's kind of like the fundamental side.
Mm-hmm.
Just to like give a brief explanation of that before we got into like the multi time frame
Mm-hmm.
analysis, like you were saying.
Hmm.
But like we were looking at the monthly, like I said, long term bullish, and it's kind of been pulling back ever since about midway through 2020. Um, so just like I said, technical analysis, it's pretty basic. Like you look for key areas of support and resistance. Um, and you want to map that out.
Mm-hmm.
Like right here, this is a pretty big key level, big support. Came all the way down here
Mm-hmm.
at 1680, about um tap down here before too. So you can tell like this is just a very important support.
Mm-hmm. Very strong
Um,
one.
very strong. So there's a good possibility that it comes down to test here again, especially if the dollar keeps getting stronger. And even with all the craziness with the dollar happening, um, like I said, the fundamentals are important because even with, like I said, all the money printing and the inflation and all this other stuff,
Hmm.
typically I've noticed, and that's another thing that I'll look at is like indexes, US 30, NASDAQ. And one thing that I've noticed is when those indexes and like
Indices.
stocks start
Mm-hmm.
dropping,
Uh-huh.
yeah, indices, when they start dropping, a lot of money tends to flow into the dollar because people see it as a safe haven. So money starts going into the dollar,
Mm-hmm.
even though necessarily it might not be the safest thing,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like the safest thing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how long that will last, I don't really know.
Of course.
But long term, I expect the dollar to lose a lot of value.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Um,
you can explain more about the craziness that dollar has.
uh, the craziness, I would say I think it all started happening around the pandemic 2020 when they decided to print trillions and trillions of dollars.
Of course.
Uh, and they just flooded the system basically. And then along with that, they lowered the interest rates to 0%. Um, and they basically have just created massive bubbles in a bunch of different sectors in the economy. Um,
Correct.
and along with that, like I said, the big hot button issue that everyone's talking about now is inflation. And that's why you kind of have seen markets panicking a little bit because everybody's worried about the FOMC coming up, especially today, because they're like, oh, the interest rate hike. They could hike the interest rate, and people are starting to worry because they don't want that, because it can cause a lot of damage. Um, because then people have to start paying money back.
Hmm.
A lot of people are over leveraged, and uh, it can cause problems. So that's just something you have to pay attention to, especially if you're trading dollar pairs.
Mm-hmm.
And most people trade dollar pairs because it's their major pairs. Um, but personally, I think gold is probably one of my favorite pairs
Mm-hmm.
just because of the volatility.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It moves a lot.
it moves a lot, and when you get a good entry, like say up here at 1854, for
Mm-hmm.
instance, and this was like last month.
Mm-hmm.
If you would have got all the way up here, I mean that's like almost 1,000
Mm-hmm.
pips.
Hmm.
Um,
And are you focusing
so
mostly on the gold or what else?
so I like to focus on gold a lot. I haven't been trading it as much
Mm-hmm.
recently, but another part of my strategy actually is like trading like you said earlier, pairs that are correlated, so multiple USD pairs. And then I
Mhm.
like to look at like the risk reward and pick out of those analysis that
Mhm.
I've done that look really solid and they look good. And I like to pick the ones with the best risk reward to
Mhm.
give me the greatest
Mhm.
outcome basically.
And do you apply same
So
strategy as on gold as on the forex pairs with USD?
yeah, I take fundamentals heavily into account. Same thing with identifying the trend,
Mhm.
identifying key levels of support and resistance. Are there
Mhm.
any trend lines?
Mhm.
And then, like I said, number one most important thing for my strategy
Mhm.
is figuring out what I'm gonna risk.
Yep.
This
Yep.
the risk management aspect. I think that's always number one, and it should be number one for anybody who's
Yep.
watching this.
Yep. Yep. Remember that to all traders, please. Risk management,
Yeah,
vital
yeah,
thing.
yeah. But yeah, I like to trade like pairs that are correlated, and I like to trade multiple pairs at a time. Um, Another one of my like I like to call it like a basket of currencies. So like a basket of the USD pairs. I like to trade yen pairs like GBP,
Mhm.
JPY, Euro JPY,
Mhm.
AUD JPY. Um, and it can really play out
Mhm.
to your favor when all of them are correlating and moving together.
Mhm.
Now, when they go against you, it can be a little bit of a problem, but as long as you manage your risk, then you really have nothing to worry about.
Mhm.
Um, so
And what's
for the most
what?
part,
Sorry.
oh,
What
you're
risk
good.
reward ratio? What risk reward ratio do you use? At least
Um,
per minimum.
yeah, yeah, minimum, I would say I'm looking for at least 1 to 2.
Mhm.
Um, but as you, pointed out before, actually, a lot of my trades, I'm especially on the month that we're currently talking about where I made that 19,000 and the 7,500 euros, I was in and out of the market really quick, like,
Mhm.
a lot, and, that's something that I also wanna tell to people who are watching right now is that you don't have to be in the markets for that long and your trades don't have to hit the full take profit. As long as you're consistently right, you can get in and out of the markets and still make a lot of money because if you're trading, like, for instance, one of my accounts is $200,000. If you make 1% on a trade, if you just do that 10 times, that's already 20 grand. You
Exactly.
know, you don't have to ride it out to your full maximum take profit because, you know, there's sometimes where the market's not always just gonna be smooth and go straight to your take profit. Um, so just keep that into like take that into account
Mhm.
basically and know always taking your profits is better than not taking profits at all.
Yep. Nice. So
Um,
what a nice fundamental analysis. Mostly. Thank you very much.
yeah,
Do you have something
yeah.
more to add?
Yeah, and so one other thing I think I wanna add is also, um and I don't know if anybody's ever talked about this on here before,
Uh huh.
but I also believe, like, these markets are pretty manipulated for the most part,
Well.
um, and you can actually, see articles of this, like, people, like, the market makers, like, collaborating together. So you just have to be really careful of like what they call like stop hunts and
Mhm.
like fake breakouts and like
Yep.
all these things and like take these things into account because I think the last one that I saw and this was a couple years ago was Deutsche Bank,
Mhm.
um, and they were fined like hundreds of millions of dollars, but they probably made like billions of dollars just manipulating the markets and collaborating with other banks to basically take your money. Like
Yes.
that's what these people are here to do. And like when you keep that in mind, like I said, risk management is the most important thing.
Yep.
Like cuz these markets can just go crazy at any time,
Yep.
and like you just won't know what to do. Like
Yep.
you'll blow your account.
Well, let's agree on that the manipulation happens and it will happen. And if you have the right risk management, you don't need to worry about them. That's it.
Yep,
Like you said.
exactly, exactly.
Cool. So again, really good advice, traders. This one. Nice. Okay, and can you show me your results in your client area?
Yeah, no problem. Um, so this is the one account that I made the 19,000 on for the month. And like I said, when I started out in a bit of a drawdown. It was almost a 1% drawdown. But after that drawdown, it was just pretty big rise. I got all the way up to about 14,000.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then right here, I remember specifically what happened
Tell
right
me,
here
tell
too. This
me.
big dip. This was when I traded gold,
Aha.
and that's why. Like I said, gold is a nice pair when it's working in your favor, but sometimes it's a little volatile. Um, so I had risked a little bit more than 1%, I think, on this trade.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I ended up losing almost half my profits, which was pretty upsetting at the time. And I think that's another thing I should talk about is, the psychology of trading.
Exactly.
Um, it because I think that's one of the biggest things in trading is your psychology and your emotions. And like when things like this happen, you have to make sure that you stay into your plan and like don't let it affect you. Of course you're human, like it's gonna affect you, but like basically deal with it however you need to deal with it, and like just get ready for the next trade. Like you're like on to the next one.
Yep.
So um that was something that was big that helped me just like push through that. I was like, and plus it's nice when you're still $7,000 in profit.
It is.
You're not like too upset. So I was still doing pretty good, and then right after that, this big rise right here,
Mm-hmm.
which brought me back up to 16,000, was again gold.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when it started working in my favor. And I believe I was shorting. We can actually look down here.
And you probably
Yeah,
had there
so
some RR of 10 or something, nah?
yeah. Uh does it show the RR on? No, not right here. But
You can take a look
um
at your biggest take profits. There is a search button.
okay, so this right here was my biggest losses, and these were in the same day, these three. And that's one of the reasons my account dipped so low.
Mm-hmm.
Um this was the gold trade that was about a 2% loss.
Mm-hmm.
Euro JPY was about 0.5%. Same with USD CAD. So I lost a significant amount in that day. And then my biggest day
Mm-hmm.
was almost literally the next day
Yep.
was gold. I had about I was putting a lot of risk on it, but I had about 7 lots,
Mm-hmm.
um, about 5.4K, and then about 4 grand on this one. So about 2 and almost 3% on that trade alone.
Nice.
Like I said, I like to trade yen pairs, USD pairs. So GBP JPY, CAD
Mm-hmm.
JPY, GBP USD, NZD JPY.
And I can see
Um,
that you are pretty consistent with the volume that you are executing.
yeah, I like to trade a lot of the same lot sizes most of the time. Every once in a while, like this, 7 lots.
Or
Uh,
3.6. Why 3.6?
uh, because most of the time it keeps my risk, uh, like my stop loss for the most part, it keeps my risk about a little under 1%.
Okay.
Sometimes it'll be a little higher than 0.5. I like to keep it in between 0.5 to 1%. Um, so this is
All right.
just
And can you show me the
my
analysis
preference.
below?
And like you said, it keeps me consistent. I like to have that consistent
Uh-huh.
lots. This right here.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as you can see, uh, I think that was the longest trade I think I
Mhm.
held. Oh no, this was the longest trade I held was 23.
Oh, no, no, this is the open time hour analysis. So at what time you are
Oh
profitable, at what time you are not. So as we can see
gosh,
here,
yeah.
at 8 o'clock, at 11 o'clock, you are really, really profitable. Why do you think is that?
Yeah. Um, it might be because I'm actually not sure
Okay.
because most of the time, most of the sessions that I actually trade, and that's something else about my strategy is that I normally only trade mainly only London session
Mm-hmm.
is when I enter.
Mm-hmm.
Um my trades sometimes will carry over
Mm-hmm.
into New York, and like I said, sometimes I'll hold my trades multiple days, so it just depends
Mm-hmm.
on how the market is moving. Um but that could be because around New York it just
Mm-hmm.
closed. I'm not really sure.
Okay.
I've never
No worries.
actually really looked at that. Yeah.
And in the right, can I tell you that you seem to be a shorter man? Why is
Yeah.
that?
I'm not really sure. I think because like I said, identifying the trend is something that's really big with me. Um and specifically in this month, I remember a lot of the yen pairs I was shorting because the Japanese yen from what I was looking at was pretty strong,
Mm-hmm.
especially like GBP, JPY, CAD, JPY.
Yep.
A lot of these pairs were really strong, and I was also shorting gold. I was also shorting a bunch of USD pairs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I just saw the dollar really strong, the yen really strong.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think that's why that this is
Okay.
so
No.
huge. Not a lot of buys at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if you take a look in long term, do you think that you are more shorter than longer?
I think I am.
Yep.
I definitely think I'm more of a shorter
Mm-hmm.
than going long.
Mm-hmm.
I've never really thought of like why, but I think it's also like I said, identifying the trend, and like a lot of the times when you can identify where there's going to be pullbacks and
Mm-hmm.
reversals, which
Mm-hmm.
is a little harder to do. But when you can catch those reversals and you can catch those corrections
Mm-hmm.
on a trend, they can be really profitable in my opinion.
Well, thank you so much for the analysis. Really good job. And let's go for our last part of the interview. All right, so I will ask again my favorite question. Do you have some inspiration or someone who inspires you in the trading community?
So I've had a couple different people that I've learned from. Um, there I feel like there's so many people on social media that are just really really successful that I look up to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just to give one name out there, people might know her. Her name is her handle is my forex journey.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like does crazy challenges,
Mm-hmm.
like turning like really small accounts into huge amounts. Really good trader, and I definitely look up to people who are just like
Mm-hmm.
pushing the envelope and
Mm-hmm.
are able to do stuff like that.
Cool. And what is your vision in your trading career?
My vision is to just make as much money as possible from trading, and also take that money from trading and invest it into other things. Like I'm into cryptocurrency. I want to invest in other businesses like e-commerce.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm learning how to program trading algorithms is another thing that I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's quite a few things that I want to do, but I think trading is probably my favorite thing to do out of all of them. It's my bread and butter, and it's just because like I've been doing it for so long. It's just like part of my life. It's
Mm-hmm.
just my routine, and I want to push it as far as I can and see where I can take it.
Well, and can you give some enlightenment to our traders about your routine?
Routine is just eat, sleep, trade. Like literally,
Okay.
my whole life is pretty much trading, except for on the weekends when it's closed. Like, I mean, my sleep schedule is horrible because I live in the United States, and to trade London session, I'm up at like 12 a.m. and then London session starts at 2, and then I'll be all the way up until like
Hmm.
where it is right now, like 7, 8, 9 in the
Yeah.
morning. And so like my schedule is completely backwards from everybody else. But my advice to other people is like, if you want it bad enough, then you'll make those sacrifices and you'll do what you have to do, because that's exactly what I did. I
Hmm.
Once I found out it was something that could change my life, I was willing to go all in.
Well, thank you for that again. And what would you say about FTMO traders?
I would say take the chance. It completely changed my life, and that it gave me a certain amount of freedom that I didn't have before. Before I was doing trading like full time, because that's what I'm doing now. I do it full time. Before I was doing it full time, I was working like a delivery job and like doing something that I didn't want to do. So it's completely changed my life. And if you really dedicate yourself and you're prepared, you have your plan and you follow it and you're consistent, and like I said, you really, really want it, then you'll find a way to make it happen and it'll change your life too.
Amazing words, and thank you so much for those again. What a fantastic Christmas interview. Wow, I really appreciate for here for coming here. And I mostly appreciate your fundamental analysis. It seems that you really know what you are doing, and thank you so much again for that. And please take care. Have a lovely holiday. And I have one small piece of advice for you. Just believe in yourself, because the more you believe in yourself, the more you will trust in your abilities to achieve great results. Do you have any last words?
Um, I would say the last thing I want to say is I just want to thank the people that have supported me through this whole journey, like my mom, my dad, all these people that have put up with me trying to figure this out for like 4 years, because it has been a journey. And like for a lot of other people, it probably has been too, or it probably will be if you're just starting. Um, like having that support was so incredible. And I also want to say, because I have friends that are actually taking the challenges right now, like to tell them to keep going, and that I know that they have this and that they're gonna get it too. And other than that, I think that's it.
Well, and that's FTMO.